Hey, welcome to Beyond Organic Wine. I'm Adam Huss. Beyond Organic Wine is a podcast and Substack about the ecology of wine. The premise of this podcast is that the way we grow and produce wine would benefit from being guided by the same love and values with which we drink it. If you'd like to support this podcast and the work that goes into each episode, please subscribe to Beyond Organic Wine Substack at beyondorganicwine.substack.com, and you'll get full access to all the podcasts, resources, and writing that happens there. And if you'd like to contact me for any reason, please email me at connect@organicwinepodcast.com or through Substack. And please follow and leave a great review in your podcast app. It's immensely helpful. Thank you for your support, and a huge thanks to those of you who already subscribe and support. I couldn't do it without you. Ooh, embracing hybrid grapes in California got some press this week. Very exciting, and we've added a new panelist from the oldest and largest winery in the world that has only ever made wine from hybrid grapes for something like 200 years. See if you can guess where and who that might be. We'll announce soon. You can get tickets and get more info at embracinghybridgrapes.com, and honestly, I'm as excited by the folks I see who are buying tickets as by the panelists. We only have about 150 spots total, and they are moving, so I hope to see you there. Embracing Hybrid Grapes in California, January 26, 2026 at UC Davis in California. Get tickets and more at embracinghybridgrapes.com. We have some incredible sponsors, including Piscinus Ranch No Regrets Initiative, Marie Anderson of Savoy & Sons, and Joyce Jones and Dennis Johnson. I am incredibly proud of and grateful for these and our other sponsors like Amiti and Usonia Wineries, not only for their generosity, but for the values they support with the work they do. If you'd like to be a sponsor or learn more about sponsoring, email us at embracinghybridgrapes@gmail.com. My guest for this episode is Franz Weninger of organic and biodynamic certified Weingut Weninger in Horitschon, Austria. And you, dear listener, are in for a treat. Franz is a second-generation wine grower who thinks deeply about the soil, the plants, the systems, and ideas that go into the ecology of wine. He offers practical and surprising insights into how to grow vinifera with less sprays, how to design vineyards for human psychological health as well as environmental health, how using highly resistant hybrids shouldn't be an excuse for neglecting our vines, but an opportunity to care for them in different, less obligatory ways, how hybrids shouldn't be an excuse for keeping high-density monoculture, and how a single tree can benefit a vineyard, and how if you don't want to picnic in a vineyard, maybe you shouldn't drink the wine from it. If this talk inspires you as much as it inspired me, you might want to check out Weninger.com. That's Weninger.com, where Franz has published many posts that dig even deeper into his thoughtful and revolutionary approach to wine growing. Enjoy. Franz, welcome to Beyond Organic Wine. Thank you so much for doing this.
Hello, thanks for being here.
So could you tell who you are, where you are, and what you do? A little bit intro?
Yes, so I'm Franz Weninger. I'm here in Burgenland and Sopron, Hungary. So I'm basically from a family of farmers, which then went to a winery in 82. And Burgenland is the most eastern part of Austria, which was until the First World War part of Hungary. So our history is connected with Hungary, but we were a German-speaking minority since 400 years. And yeah, since 1997, we make wine on both sides of the border. And this helped me a little bit to get out of the local thinking and see a little bit from outside, what's happening in the region.
In what sense? Why don't you jump right into that?
Yeah, basically, when you grow up in a wine culture in Europe and you go to wine school in Austria, you get the kind of feeling of things which are right and things which are not right. Yeah. And the same way in Hungary, just also on historic topics like the city Sopron, which was the center of Burgenland before the World War, for example. From Austria, in our history books, we learned that it was a faked vote and this city should have gone to Austria. in Hungary, the children learn that this is the most bravest city because it voted to stay in Hungary. So and
Right.
so it's the same things, and with wine it's totally the same. So like if you talk about varieties, uh, the Hungarians would say that Keck Frankish is a Hungarian variety, and Furmint, and the Austrians would say that Blaufränkisch is an Austrian variety. And then also in the way of winemaking, you're just being part of your community, basically a really nice word what you always use, and this community forms you.
Thank you for noticing. um, so Burgenland, south of Vienna.
South of Vienna, we are 1 hour south of Vienna
Okay,
towards the border. So I grew up at the Iron Curtain, and then at one point it disappeared.
nice. Yeah. In your lifetime, right?
Yes, so I was basically around 10, yeah, 11, 12.
Okay.
And the area where we are is the, the direct connection to Vienna was always over Hungary. So even in the communist time, the train was going over Hungary, just closed the doors because the railroad tracks are older than the border. And the street to Vienna was over a quite high hill. So when the border appeared, it was very difficult to get to Vienna. So the region stayed very calm and very laid back. And just 82, they made the highway to Vienna. So then we got a little bit more connected to the Austrian main city.
Hmm. Is that? Yeah, I'm just thinking my own connections to that area. I think it's not super close, but not it's the bordering country or region back is where my last name comes from. I
Oh,
believe
really?
up in the Prague area. It was probably Bohemia when
Mm-hmm.
that name originated. Um, yeah, way back when.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I also would say that this history is mainly understandable when you think about, yeah, in our area, I would always consider that the Hungarian Austrian Empire, this was a time when maybe wine culture was created. And
mm,
Vienna cuisine, for example, is a big influence of all the, if it's Bohemia, if it's Hungary, yeah, it's a mix of all different cultures coming together. And I think this was always the great thing about it's the great thing about the Viennese cuisine.
it's great. Yeah, I well, I mean, Austria now is known for natural wine, and you've got a lot of like rock star natural wine producers there. And how did that develop from
So
your
a big part,
perspective?
yeah, a big part of it for sure is coming from the area where I am, so from Burgenland, and the big part of this is because we were learned in school that we are the youngest part of Austria and we have basically no history. So we didn't connect to our wine
Oh,
history, and we stayed more open-minded, in my guess, than the other parts of Austria. You see it, for example, on the heritage system. We had a Hungarian heritage system, and the rest of Austria had the Austrian heritage system. And because of this, Burgenland was very open-minded when natural wine or the natural wine movement happened, because I think we are still searching our connection to the place.
hmm.
And then Styria for sure happened, and it's and Lower Austria, so Niederösterreich. But
Hmm.
I would still say the biggest amount of natural producers, even if I'm also not like the term that much. Uh, uh,
Tell me about that.
yeah, I think it really comes from the allergic system of the EU. So when we had to put down that there is sulfur in wine, people first time recognized that there is something in my wine which is not from from the nature. And and I think really at that time, and then I believe in Simon Wolf's definition that yogurt, so the food, basically there is a plain yogurt called in Austria or in France called uh, yogurt natur. So it's a yogurt without fruits, without jam. And so basically, I think that from that term, the term natural was used. So in my opinion, it's more a term used of addings in wine and has not the connection from the vineyards. So it was really more about sulfur and other stuff in the wine, uh, and I had a very hard time to use this term, as I always know that wine is culture, and yeah, and when we started to do non-intervention wines, we lost many batches for VA or other fermentation issues. And so, like the first 10 years, I was trying very hard to have a clean fermentation wine. And then when natural wine appeared, they told me your wine is too clean. And then I was like, come on, it's somehow. So it was not a good start with me with natural
So it
wine.
was either undrinkable or too clean
Yeah,
were your options. Yeah, that's
yeah.
fun.
So, but in the end, I really think it's a great movement because it helped get the people open minded, and I think this is what wine needs. You have to be open minded and be interested. Otherwise, yeah, what's the sense of drinking wine? And I think with this movement, for example, it opened then other thoughts in my brain to make cross-border wines or different fermentation. So I still think it's a very, very important movement.
So what you were saying, if I'm hearing you correctly, I just want to confirm that I'm hearing you correctly, that you don't like thinking of natural wine as just removing or talking about what happens in the cellar. You'd like to refocus it on
For
what
sure.
happens before the cellar.
Yeah, for
Is that
sure.
what you?
I think
That's what
for
you're.
me always this was always weird that conventional wines just being without sulfur got sold as natural wines. For me,
Yeah,
when I told you about this fermentation issues we had from 2000 on, and we went organic to solve our fermentation issues. So the reason to have a healthy soil and was because we had fermentation issues, and we ripped out varieties because we thought these varieties are not fermenting good in our area or from our places. And so I think without the vineyard, yeah, it's the communication is yeah. I think we had the same communication when barrique was a very important word in wine, when everybody put barrique on his wine, yeah, or like other cellar techniques. And like in the first natural wine fairs, people were only talking about how the wine was made and fermented, and nobody talked about how the vineyard looked like. And I
yeah.
always missed this part of, yeah.
How did you? I mean, let's talk about that. How do you approach it? I mean, do you do your own farming? You buying grapes? What's your production like? So let's talk
So
about. Yeah,
before like 2000, we started non-intervention wine, and before that, we were still buying grapes. And then from 2000 vintage on, we stopped buying grapes because we started spontaneous fermentation, and we saw the problems we had with buying grapes. And
yeah,
then the
yeah,
next step then was basically organic 2003, and the next step was biodynamic farming 2006. And 2008 we were first time thinking about sulfur because I had a German intern from which worked also in the Mosel, and we had a long talk about sulfur. And from that on, I kind of started to rethink how much sulfur is needed, and also because the fermenting wines from our organic biodynamic vineyards then uh, had a way bigger reduction potential. So you just had to use less sulfur because the wine was too reductive with the sulfur we used at that time.
oh,
So it was all coming more logical time by time, I would say. So this was the way.
it sounds like it was simultaneously guided by um, wine quality considerations as well as sort of ecological and how the ecological influence the wine quality. Is that true?
Yes, I definitely would say this, that for me, it was always my culture or my surrounding. The goal was to make the best wine. And then you, first of all, yeah, is it the right question? What's the best wine? I can say this now, but when I started, I had kind of a wine in my head, but yeah, quickly, let's say over 6, 7 years, I figured out that this is not working on some kinds of soil, on some kinds of vineyards. So I learned to listen to my vineyards and try to do the right steps that the wine can or the vineyard can show its potential. But for sure, I also have to say the result was always, yeah. So the wine was always, it's always the most important thing. How I like the wine, how I taste the wines, and from that I try to learn or get better.
That's great. I I know that you are deeply thoughtful about so much of this because I was reading your website and
Thank you.
I'm I'm wondering, what's well, let's start with, this one that of course jumped out to me, future of viticulture. Um, you know, what inspired you to write that? And let's talk about some of the ideas there.
Yeah. Um, you know, uh, on this way,
And you're
so
writing in English, or am I just seeing translation?
this was kind of it was basically translation. Yeah, I'm writing it in
Okay.
German, and it's a translation. And yeah, so when we decided to give away tools, so in the end, I think wine is just a stabilization method. So basically, energy from the grapes got by luck stabilized, and the energy is conserved for, yeah, basically thousands of years with alcohol. So I think this is the historic part of wine, how it started, and this worked without anything. So it's happened by luck, and the yeast was there, and the fermentation starts. So we made decisions to use less tools in the cellar. So we made the decisions to use less tools, and tools also like if it's handwork, chemicals, or soil work in the vineyard. Uh, but uh, let's say when we started organic farming, we have the luck that our autochthone varieties very work very good in our area. So we have not much problem with downy mildew. We have more problem with powdery mildew. So copper is not a big thing. But still, when we started organic farming, it was about 5 sprays, 3 to 5 sprays. And in the last years, we are about up to 8 to 9 sprays for these varieties. And you come to a point that you see if you if you look into the future, it would happen that with these tools we have, we might be not possible to produce these varieties anymore. And farming has to be, we have, so crossing, breeding was always a tool used in agriculture. And
Yeah.
and if we gave this up because just of variety names, which basically are marketing terms, uh, yeah, this is not, could not be the reason. It's just very stupid to give the tool breeding up, and then in the end make maybe historic wines like in a museum and in a glass house. Like, this is this the future of these varieties? Then no,
Yeah.
that's not my future.
I mean, that's exactly the way I put it, is like, the current wine culture is like a museum piece. Like I use that exact, you know, description where it's like it's no longer a living culture. It's just preserving, behind glass
Mm.
this stagnant thing that we sort of revere in the way that we revere, art in a museum or something like that. But it's not alive. It's not part of like a living culture anymore. It's just this
Yes.
yeah, and then a bunch of reproductions of it
Yeah.
get sold all around the planet.
Yeah, and then this DOC, so AOC system, making it even harder for creative people to try something. They don't allow things that, and this is like something where,
Yeah.
yeah, I definitely think we have to change this and be just open minded. This is
How influential is what do you guys have? Do you have the sort of VDP system in Austria? I'm not as familiar with
So
Austria's.
they tries to copy it from Germany. There is a
Right.
group of producers. They try to make this yeah, kind of a copy of the VDP system and make a certification of the vineyards. But what we have DAC, which is District
DAs.
Austria Controllate, which is
Okay.
basically, so the EU generally wants that all countries work with this system. So
Right.
it's a EU rule, you can say. But that we as a farmer theoretically can influence this and be part of this. So I tried for many years, but at one point you just give up because yeah, if 80% or 90% of the farmers just want to live in this museum and work with this variety, work with just this variety and this method and this alcohol, and everything gets put on into numbers. At one point you have to say, okay, that's not my world, and I have to spend my energy better than discussing with these kind of people.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, just going back to the breeding thing, like it's. I mean, it it shocks me how. I mean, once you become aware of like what this culture that is the dominant wine culture really is like from an outside perspective, it is kind of shocking. I just had this conversation with a vegetable grower who was moving over to wine for, God bless them, don't wish it on anybody. but I mean,
At that
growing
time.
vegetables to make a living isn't that easy either.
Yeah.
So but they were, moving out of that world of market gardening and pasture raised chickens and things like that, and coming into wine, and they were just stunned. They were just like, if we had a crop, like if we had a vegetable that we had to grow, that we had to spray, once every 10 days or once a week, when it's rainy or something like that, like they were just like, that would just be unconscionable. Like it just isn't, nobody would tolerate that in that
Yeah.
world of
Yeah.
agriculture. And yet it's just the norm for vines.
Yeah.
Um, and I think it's really helpful to get perspectives like that to to maybe check, how
Yeah.
insane what you're doing is,
Yeah.
and I live in a place where we don't have AOCs or the EU, and we also I mean, I live part of the time in a place where the climate is mild enough where growing organically is quite easy, even with vinifera.
Mm.
But I think because of that, I think California is falling behind. Talking about California, I think
Mm.
it's too easy. People aren't being challenged to think about resilience and sustainability in the same way. And I think Europe is, I mean, I see more exciting things happening with hybrids now in Europe than in California. And I think we're
I'm
going to
not
be in this
sure.
place.
it's,
Oh, really? Oh,
so
I can't
maybe
wait to
you
hear
see
your
your
perspective.
bubble, but for sure it's slowly happening, and I'm also hearing more and more people thinking about it. Where I never thought that these wineries will go this route, but still, I think it's still a niche, and humans are very how to say, not comfortable, so like lazy a little bit. They are used to things, and if and yeah, like you say, if they're used to spraying, we always did it, you accept things, and this is like yeah, you have to step out to see this from the perspective. So it's because if you're always in this village and everybody sprays, like you say, okay, that's the part of the life, we have to do this, and yeah, just yeah, like you said, go to another culture, see other vegetables, and think about what they do. Yeah, it's just great to meet other cultures and interact. I think it's
It
just great
it
for
is.
everybody.
It is. Yeah. I mean, it's so eye opening and so expanding, like you were saying.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. No, I I lost my train of thought going off on on that. And you're the one drinking. I'm just having coffee. And
Sorry for that, but it's evening here, so
um, I I guess I there's a couple things. I mean, reading through what you've written, there were multiple things that I just wanted, ideas I wanted to bounce off of you. But before I do that, can you talk about your production and what you make and what you work with in terms of your
yes.
fruit and that kind of stuff?
So basically, like I said, it started as a farm, but the fields got rented to organic farmers around. So basically, we have now mainly wine. We have a few orchards, and we have a vitiforest project for 20 years. And we gave up the sheeps we are starting with a small chicken farm again. But we have, if I'm realistic, wine is the main, so 90% or more than income of the winery.
Mm.
And we are not small, so basically we were really big. So when I started, my father was very young, so he had the opportunity to buy the land in Hungary, and I moved to Hungary and started a winery there. And I wanted to prove that I'm the same good as my father. So I was running a winery. It went up to 30 hectares, and my father has winery for 30 hectares. And then when
Mm.
he retired, my sister didn't come into the winery, so I took over the family winery. And since that, I'm reducing. And now we have 34 hectares of vineyards, and about, yeah, let's say 2 hectares of orchards, and then yeah, some just
What's that? What is an
grassland.
orchat?
Or how to say, apple trees and fruit trees,
Oh,
orchard,
orchards,
or
orchards.
orchards,
Gotcha.
orchards. Sorry, my
Yeah.
my English is sometimes not the best.
No, no, I should have known that. Sorry, but good to clarify for
Yeah,
anybody else.
perfect. Thank you.
Um. Oh, okay, gotcha. Do you ferment any of those?
Yes, so that's
Do you
also my
make just
biggest
ciders, or
problem
do you
of,
do
yes, ciders. I do ciders, but
you do
kind of,
any
and
co-ferment?
I made some fruit juices, and no co-ferments really. It was basically fruit co-ferments of quince and apple, but not with wine. And but I have to be realistic. I didn't manage to be accepted as with fruit wine. We live in a society that people know my wine and they pay money for my wine. But if I made good juices and ciders, it's kind of to say, ah, nice, interesting. But as we don't have a strong cellar door, so basically there is no cellar door. The area is very remote, so people come here really for if they want to have a tasting with me, but they come for wine and not for something else. So I think I here have to go into more corporations, or that maybe somebody else could use my fruit for this. So
Gotcha.
or maybe my kids. That's the next opportunity I have,
When you say you don't
because,
have a cellar door, you mean like a tasting
or
room?
a tasting room. Yeah,
Situ-
that's what I mean. So
yeah,
we don't have, we have a tasting room, but it's not so
not
common
like
anymore in Austria that many people would go there and come there. Yeah, it's kind of
right.
dying out if you
So
don't make
you're
events or something.
you're distributing.
Exactly, and in the
Does I mean
distribution.
beyond the borders of Austria? Like, are you international?
Yes, I always
Yeah.
say it like this. For sure, it would be great to only sell in Europe. But if I had to accept that the wine style I like and I make is for such a niche audience that we don't can fill a stadium, we are playing in very small cellars around the world, and we
Hmm.
have fans around the world, but we need also the whole world nearly to be interested in our wines. So I would say since we started this way since 10 years, we are going to 80% of export and only 20% in Austria and Hungary what we sell.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, 85. I mean, 34 hectares, 85 acres. It's a
Yeah,
big. It's a big,
it's a big
big, big
production.
chunk. Big production.
It
Um,
is.
yeah, I would be intimidated. I'm intimidated by five.
Yeah.
That or 20,
But
whatever. I
it
don't know.
doesn't, it's always if you grow into it, and it was more for us, it feels even, and we have
Right.
the staff here working since 15, 20 years. They know their work, and it feels okay now.
Yeah.
15 years ago, I always had the feeling, no, it's too big for me, it's too big for me, it's too big for me. And now I think, no, I'm fine with the size. And uh, I also could see that this, yeah, if you work with people, you also have some you have some freedom. You can take some time off. If you're smaller, everything is relied on you, and then you're the only person who can do things. So yeah, so I like
That's
my
true.
size at the moment, and yeah,
That's
that's
great.
what I feel
Yeah.
fine now.
Now, at that size, I know that you wrote well, let's talk about fruit before I jump into ideas again.
Yeah.
um, the grapes. What do you work with? The
So
varieties.
so mm, we traditionally it was Blaufränkisch mainly.
Uh-huh.
Then my father introduced French varieties in the 80s and 90s, and then with the organic conversion, we kicked out the French varieties. So from the autochthone varieties, we're working with Blaufränkisch, Zweigelt, a little bit, and then we reintroduced an old variety which was traditional Pre-phylloxera, which is Furmint, but which has very
Yeah.
similar growing in the vineyard like Blaufränkisch. So my workers love it because they know how to work with it. So
Yeah.
and this was so it was, I think, a good thing we did. And there are just two international varieties which stayed. So I kicked out Pinot Noir. So what stayed is on one vineyard, a very dry vineyard, we kept a little bit of Syrah, and on another vineyard we kept a little bit of Cap Franc.
Okay.
And then
Now,
we started like 4 5 years ago or 6 years ago with Sauvignon Gris and a half row of Muscaris.
Scottish. Okay, just a half row. How's it
Yeah,
doing? Testing it
it's
out?
nice. It's nice testing, and let's see. It's really nice for skin fermenting, and but I think of, I don't know what's the next of PVs I will go. So I'm still in the consideration. I also have I think a little bit about a sparkling project. So maybe I also will look
Mm,
into this Voltus or Voltis, the champagne variety they're
sure.
using. So yeah, let's see.
Well, Saval just won the IWC Best New Producer Sparkling from England. So
Uh,
Saval can make a pretty decent sparkling as well.
I was already looking at this variety,
Yeah.
but and
No, I'm
it's
not. Yeah, I'm not recommending
yeah.
it. Just, I
How
mean, things to
yeah,
consider.
yeah,
I mean, there's a
exactly.
lot out there. I just had, well, I had a Saint Pepin from Quebec that is, I mean, one of the better white wines I've ever had. And they also made a sparkling Vidal. So
Yeah,
I'm excited to try that. I got that, but I haven't tried it yet. Trying it tomorrow. So I'll
nice.
let you know how it does as a sparkling. But I mean, they do crazy stuff. It was like 12 years on lees in bottle before
Oh.
disgorging and stuff like that. Um, so I'm excited by it. It's a pretty special
And I also
sparkling.
think on sparkling, it's definitely. Uh, I think it will be easy to find a variety because if the acid is there, what
Right.
else what else do you need? It's
And
acid and the right
Sauvignon
picking.
Gris is a pretty popular one, right? It's
Yes, so
does
Sauvignon Gris also had very good sparkling wines. This was also
yeah.
the reason why I picked it in the first time, but uh, yeah, it's this is, I don't know, in here in Austria I would say maybe the most. There is another one called Donau Riesling which I'm thinking about. It's a
Yeah.
cross in Austria, and we also have good results with this, but I don't have one planted yet.
Nice. Now, why did you remove the other French varieties? They just weren't.
So
Was it like
Merlot was the problem with not powdery, with downy mildew,
okay?
and it just didn't make sense. And the second problem was fermentation issues. I had the feeling that Merlot and Cabernet Sauvignon, for example, until 2016, I was really, I thought of, I tried to make a clean, but for me clean, maybe it's not clean for everybody, but I tried to make a 0-0 wine all the time. And 16, I really made nearly 80% of the vintage 0-0. And then from that on, I started again to use 10 milligrams at the bottling. And Merlot and Cabernet Sauvignon really had problems in my cellar to ferment and work without sulfur. I even had the feeling that these varieties need sulfur at the grapes to have normal fermentations, and
Huh.
I didn't want to do this, so I removed the varieties.
That's really interesting. Yeah. What did you notice?
The first notice was very long time ago, so 20 years. It was a malolactic fermentation didn't start on Merlot, And then after 1 year, I was like kind of getting of nervous. I was in my Hungarian cellar and I had no cooling in the cellar, and the cellar got warm. And then I decided in June, July to sulfur. And at the moment when I sulfured, the malolactic fermentation kicked in. And and
Oh,
then similar experience with fermentations. That fermentations on Merlot did go very slow, and malolactic was coming in, and VA was from the feeling at least rising. And then I decided to give some sulfur, and fermentation was going faster. And yeah, this was just my feeling that there is something in the variety, or some microbiome there which is blocking fermentation, and only with sulfur you can stop this. And yeah, I in this sense I don't go deeper in science on that, because I don't have a lab or something. That's just, then I do it from feelings, and then the easiest was to not work with these varieties anymore.
yeah. I mean, it makes sense to me too that varieties from, you know, ostensibly at least from that area would do better in that area.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and then I Zweigelt. This has had some. I don't know. I've heard talk of name changes for this. Do you? Is that a real thing over there? What's going on over there? Does
Yeah,
anybody care over there?
yeah, if you look in our history, uh,
Yeah.
we Austrians were always good in being, I don't know what's the word, Opfer. So we were the first who got, so Hitler took over, but in the
Right.
end we were also waving the flag. So yeah, I have to say it's not easy about this, but we never. So I think we were really bad in cleaning our history or talk about our history. And just recently, people started to talk about Zweigelt, and the breeder of this was got kind of, yeah, more famous and under the Nazi time. And yeah, and so I, in this sense, it's so long time ago, and like I'm coming from a family where my grandmother's father was mayor and got kicked out by the Nazis, and my grandfather's father was running with the Nazis. So, what can you say? It's like, how can you judge? It's so I think the drama of such wars are way more generations in our bones and in our head. So I always see this on the way of how we treat how we treat trees. So I always think that in Austria we have a really big problem of any plants which get older than we. So it seems for me always when a tree gets 80 years, people want to kill them, or yeah, it's like, I don't know. And it's so I think at least I don't want to think about that. So for sure there is another name how it was called before. It's Rotburger. But
Right.
for me, it's more important, is the variety fitting to the place or not fitting to the place? And I have to say it was always wrong in our area, because we were too cold for this variety, and it was always more a Nordburgenland, so north, the part closer to Vienna variety. But since 7, 8 years, it's getting better and better here, and I really have to say, at the moment, I like it a lot. And then also with more carbonic fermentation, it's working, and it's producing good fruits nearly every year. And so I will keep this two vineyards which I have planted with Zweigelt.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. It's
Blaufränkisch then is anyhow a very stable variety. So I'm also happy with this. But still, if we think about new plantations, I think I will not plant Vitis vinifera anymore in my time. So this because yeah, I will keep the vineyards which are in good shape, and Uh, but also there we had to accept, we work with very old wines, uh, and you also have to accept at some points when you, how to say, I coming from this biodynamic viewpoint, ecological viewpoint, so I always try that plants interact with each other, and not from a religious viewpoint, and therefore I let nature and cover crops quite close to my wines, and then I had to accept that some old wines just can't handle this, and then you have two ways: you remove the cover crops or you remove the wines. That's the decisions you can make, and
When you
I
say they can't handle it, are they just they're there's too much competition? They're too
yes, there's too
feeble
much
at this
competition.
age?
Yeah, mm, we really figured out. So in the beginning of biodynamic transition, we had so we have never irrigation, and we had cover crops under the vines as well for the whole year around, and it worked pretty well for the first 5 years. But in the drier years, we saw more and more of the old vines just dying. You had less wood to prune, and the growing got less, and then some of the old wines just died, and then some of the vineyards lost many wines, and yeah, normally I don't care, but at one point you have to accept that its economy is a part of
Yeah,
I have to pay my
right.
workers, so it's at one point you have to make decision if this still makes sense, and uh, but on the other side, like I also know, like my as a further distance plant. So not so I have one vineyard planted in Hungary, 64 planted for Russian tractors, which have 3 meter 30 spacing, so very far spacing, only 2,000 wines per hectare, and this is the most healthy vineyards in the recent years, because how more space you give to the wines, how healthier they stay, and I even
Mm.
think that with Vitis vinifera, it would be possible to make no spray vineyards. So, like, I have a Zweigelt wine in my garden, and in out of 10 years, it stays healthy in 8 years. I never spray. And in the vineyard, when they are planted like 4,000, 5,000 wines per hectare, out of 10 years, it gets sick in 9 years. So I think also that
Right.
the plantation system we have, which is then again economy, uh, brings us to decisions we have to make.
That's a really good point. I mean, I think there are obvious, like, there's genetic resistance that's part of it, but yeah, I mean, I think health and the health of the vine and the room to, not have like transference of mildew from leaf to leaf to leaf to leaf through an
Exactly.
entire 10-acre block or whatever,
Yeah.
is a big deal,
Yeah.
as
That's
well
that.
as like all the circulation and light penetration that comes from giving
Yeah.
space.
And then I
But
also saw like this on this, which happened, a co-plant between Vitis vinifera and Sauvignon Gris, and
uh
there's one row and two, and on the side 2 rows of Sauvignon Gris, both sides, and I sprayed the Sauvignon Gris, I think, in the last 2 years 2 times. I think one time would enough, but maybe even this would be not necessary depending on the black rot situation. But
right.
uh, this Blaufränkisch stayed totally healthy because it was surrounded by healthy plants,
Oh,
and
really?
and I really think this, what we saw on
Huh.
COVID. If you keep people very tight, or what we know on chicken breeding,
Right.
it's just
Right.
not good. It's just not good
Right.
to
Right.
to do this. It's
Yeah.
if someone gets sick, many others get sick.
Yeah. That's that's funny. Yeah, it's funny. We've learned that with animals. Well, at least we know
Yeah.
that. I don't know whether we've learned it or not, but but seldom do we think about that with like our vines and other row crops. But
Yeah, I
obviously,
also think it's because also this French, when I was young, people always told me high density plantation is the way to go because you need the
right,
concurrence and the roots go down. But
right,
there's so much stress already in our nature, that
right.
we don't have to stress the wines with themselves. So I think it's a very stupid concept.
I
basically they.
totally agree.
Yeah,
I've done it. It just creates more work for you, and
yeah,
it incentivizes you to like have poorer soils so that the vines don't grow as much, so you don't have to work as hard to like
exactly.
keep them in balance.
Yeah, it's true.
um, which just makes you even then makes the vines even more dependent on you.
Yeah.
Um, that's
But I
really
also have to say
interesting. That
one thing about this.
yeah,
Sorry
please.
for interrupting.
No, no.
Uh, in my biodynamic view, care about something is always very important, and for sure,
That's a
spraying
great. That's a great
spraying is
point.
not care. But in the end, it's also kind of caring for a plant, and I think the goal to on hybrids or BVs is also we still have to care for the plants to make great wines. Just to spray less. Even I'm a quite lazy winemaker, and for sure I'm happy to do less. But I think if we don't have the human connection to the wines anymore, as we don't go there so often because the system works perfectly for them, maybe we also lose some spiritual energy, which should be in our wines. So I think it's still
I love
important.
that. That's such a great point. I want to think a lot about that. That's so great. But I mean, there's a way, right, to go out and give attention to vines without
Exactly.
using
Just yeah.
fungicides, right? Right.
Exactly. Normally with the fungicides, you look if they get sick, but
Oh
maybe you
my
just
gosh,
go
this is
out
so
and
great.
look if they are healthy. Yeah, everything
Right,
is
right,
good.
yeah.
Just
Instead of
care.
like
Just
instead of like a weekly drive a tractor through with a tank full of fungicide, you weekly take a walk through,
exactly. And
carry some little, whatever it is with you that you're
yeah,
like,
yeah.
giving a little
I
love
think
to the vines.
this is what uh, when you speak about community, I really think that we are part of this community, and yeah, we have to be
100%.
there, and
Yeah, and the
I
community isn't
yeah.
isn't I never use it to mean only humans,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, no,
It's
no.
like yeah,
That's why I loved it how you use it, because it's the microbes, it's the plants, it's the trees. We are
right.
part of this. We need each other, and
Yeah.
okay, maybe we lost the communication with them. In the Bible, we lost it when we bit from the apple, and we at that time we
Mm,
lost the connection to the nature. Where the animals, they still have this connection. That's why working with animals brings it a little bit back to this
mhm.
connection with nature.
I
But
mean,
yeah, so I still think we still have a little bit of this connection to nature, and we have to work on it to listen better.
I kind of, there's quite a few people who would say we haven't lost it. We've just lost our sensitivity. And
Yeah,
I don't know if you've done any reading of Stephen Herod Buhner, but
no,
he and I would say a lot of indigenous cultures here in North America definitely have a belief that we can communicate, and it just
yeah,
takes some time of listening. In fact, I went into I sat in on I went to an herbalist conference earlier this year where one of the sessions was about plant communication, or communicating with plants, or listening. I don't know, with it was basically like listening to plants or communicating with
yeah,
plants. But a lot of, pretty much all of these indigenous cultures that have like incredible ecological knowledge, even in terms of like these very elaborate preparations of various medicinal concoctions and things like that, that are just like mind-boggling, how somebody would figure out this is how you would have to process like these three plants together to create this whatever it is that's
yeah,
incredibly beneficial for humans. Like, how in the history of like trying out these like really toxic plants and in
yeah.
multiple different ways did we figure it out? And they're like, we didn't. Like, they taught us how to
They
use them.
taught us. Yeah,
Yeah.
crazy,
And
huh?
so yeah.
Yeah, I strongly believe in this, and for me, it always comes to picture. We had a very good biodynamic teacher, and he was very funny. So the first thing when he walked out in the vineyard, he said, the first thing what a biodynamic farmer has to do, he has to touch the leaf of of the wine and has to say, hello, good morning. And we were like,
Mm,
come on. And
mm,
then he said, you know what I just done? And we said, no. I checked, is there stress? Is the leaf feeling wet? Is it flexible? Is it cold? Is it warm? So I used all my senses to communicate with the plant. And this was also
Hmm.
the first time where I started to eat the leaves of my wines,
Oh
because
yeah.
we have to use all our senses to get better farmers. And yeah, I think the science at the moment will not help, at least not. Maybe it will, but I think we at the moment we still don't know much about uh, this language about the plants. So we have to believe in our senses. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I, I when bud thinning, it's a great time to munch.
Yeah,
uh,
it's true.
bud and throot shitting, shoot thinning, not throot
Yeah.
shitting.
And then
Shoot
when you
thinning.
spray, you don't want to eat it anymore, So,
Exactly. That's what
so
I was just gonna say. I was like, if you don't want to eat it, that might be telling you something
yeah,
about
yeah,
what you're doing.
yeah. It's the same. I always tell the people, if you don't want to make a picnic in a vineyard, you should drink the wine. And then people
That
fastly understand. Oh, maybe I don't want to sit here,
well,
because
this is what
normally
I. That's
people are blind on this. Sometimes they don't see there is glyphosate or something. I don't know. But then I tell them, look, do you want to make a picnic here? And then they say, nah, maybe not. You see, maybe you shouldn't drink the wine.
right. Well, so I mean, and not just. I mean, for sure, that is a big part of it. I mean, absolutely. Like, I think if a vineyard isn't the kind of place where you want to like make love to your partner, then like,
Yeah,
why do you, like, what are you doing?
yeah,
But also, like, I was, when we were talking about like, instead of driving a tractor through, going through and immersing your human self into this community of plants to make that connection so that the wine is feels like it has that connection. I also think like that might cause you to design your vineyard differently. Like it might change the way you're trellising, it might change the way you're growing the vine so that you want to be in the vineyard, so that it becomes a place that you want to hang out, that you want to invite people into, that has an energy that is welcoming versus, I think VSP can be a real off-putting type of trellising system. It can
yeah.
be, it's meant for efficiency and productivity, which,
Exactly.
like these things are necessary, but when it defines your landscape, we lose something, right? Like there's some
Yeah,
element that we are that a human connection to that landscape that is not about money and efficiency and mechanization,
yeah.
that is that we lose.
Yeah, for me it was this examples of trees. So in Horitschon we have a cherry variety called the Horitschon hard cherry, and it's a variety only happening in the village. And it was a tradition to have in every vineyard a cherry tree. It was there that when you worked the vineyard, you could make a break in the shadow, have the flowers of the cherries in the spring, and pick a cherry when they are ripe to eat. And I grew up at a time where we also picked the cherries for selling, but then 20 years ago it didn't pay the workers anymore to sell the cherries. Sad story. So more and more of these cherry trees are kind of dying, and nobody replants it. And
Hmm.
for me, it was very interesting when I took over the Austrian winery. My father always made this. You must imagine we have this Hungarian heritage system, so we ended up in the in the hardest time to have 70, so 70 different parcels, and it was very hard to make a selection of the best parcels and the best Blaufränkisch. So my father made always the selection by the age of the wine. So the oldest wines from special vineyards were the best, and I didn't trust this selection anymore. So I really vinified 70 different Blaufränkisch, one vintage, and I tasted all the wines. And then I found like 10, 15 wines. I said, they are different. They are somehow different. And I didn't find the connection until I drove to the vineyards and I said, oh, these are the vineyards where a cherry tree is in. And it was
That's
for me,
so.
it was for me really eye shock, because this tree, there's one tree in 50 meters or something, or even 100 meters, but it had an influence on the taste. It And we have this loamy soils, which is very reductive, and it seems like the cherry tree brings more fruit, more openness in the wines. And we have another vineyard on limestone in the neighbor village where they always planted mulberry trees. And there is always a mulberry tree around the vineyard and in the vineyard. And I think it makes sense. And I want to keep up with this tradition. And for sure, I I I'm not stupid. I have to pay my workers. I maybe it's just one tree every 50 or 100 meters, but that's enough for making a break. It's enough to having a vineyard with a tree. It just looks so different, and maybe it's enough to have this third layer. You have the ground layer of grass, then maybe the bushes are our vines, and the third layer for maybe the birds or other insects are the trees. I always try to copy at least a little bit of this three-layer system in the vineyards.
Yeah, a multi-dimensional space
Yeah,
rather than just like a two-dimensional space,
yeah.
which is, like what we would find if that
Nature
landscape
always.
was allowed, yeah,
Yeah,
to do
yeah,
what it
yeah,
wanted to do.
exactly. Yeah, it's exactly. In a forest,
Yeah,
it would be always like this.
right. I mean, you have no idea. Everything you just said is stuff that I'm like writing about right now. It's kind of amazing. I literally just went through I mean, when I was anyway, I won't go into it, but I love the idea of just a single tree can make that difference, and
Yeah,
it does. And you mentioned some things that most people aren't thinking about when they're thinking about designing a
a vineyard.
vineyard. You mentioned the blossoms in the spring, which are beauty.
Yeah,
Most people aren't thinking about like, how do I make this a beautiful space? Integrate beauty into the,
yeah,
like, even to the point, not like, well, people will put like a rose bush at the end of their vine
yeah,
rows, but that isn't a sacrifice to beauty. You know what I mean? It's just like,
yeah.
yeah, you stick something at the end, but like when you put a tree in the middle of your vineyard, you're giving up, you're like making an offering
Yes,
to beauty,
yes, right.
partially, but
Yeah,
also to shade,
and
to,
yeah,
to habitat. You mentioned the birds,
yeah,
but
yeah,
insect life is so important to vineyards, even though, there's things you have to think about, but like you're also welcoming the birds in that will help keep balance when you put a tree. But
yeah,
then you also mentioned like the workers, like the importance to having a spot like that to take a break, like thinking
yeah,
about what it's like that a vineyard is a human part of the community. It is like we need to think about human welfare. It's not
exactly.
just about producing a product. It's
Yeah,
like it has to be worked by people. It has to, people
yeah.
have to be in
So,
that on a
so
daily
that's like
basis.
always like we had a tradition that like above if a row is longer than 100 meters, you always had a walkthrough that you could make a break or
Mm,
could work
yeah.
back if you were too tired. And then with mechanization, my father gave this up because the people have to work even 200 meters, and 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 uh, and then when you think, when I want to go out to a vineyard to work, in which vineyard I will go? I will go in the vineyard with a tree and where there is a walkthrough because
Yep.
I know if I don't have the mood to work longer, I can turn around and finish the other side of the row, or I can make a break under the tree. And I think we have to get this back in our mind because, okay, if we have agriculture only made by machines, okay, if this is the future, then maybe you don't have to do this. But I'm not sure if
I
wine
mean,
then is there has the function anymore because I think wine
right.
function is the function for democracy, for a glue of social, so to bring different Democrats and Republicans on the same table and discuss about things, without like the Japanese,
Yeah.
they after COVID they really said they convince people to drink more alcohol because only on Friday when they drink in the company they were saying real things to their bosses because under the week they were like too brave or not, or they couldn't speak so strongly to the boss, but when they drink together they told them the reality. And it's very important for the culture of a company that you hear the reality. And so I think in this
Huh.
way we need alcohol for our communities, but alcohol made out of robots in a vineyard, I don't know if this alcohol will give this function to the community.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned just again in the vineyard design, you're also building in human psychology. Like I mean, think like I've worked in vineyards where the row is like, I don't know,
Endless.
much longer than 100 meters long. And it's daunting. I mean, you work all morning and you're in the same row and you just feel like, you feel it feels Sisyphean.
Yeah,
This is just endless work that I will never finish because the row just keeps going and and you're in one row. You feel like you haven't accomplished anything because you
nothing.
can't even get that whole row done before lunch,
Yeah,
You're just like, I mean, the burden on your psychology is like, it just feels like you have a sense of accomplishment when you get done with a row and then you
exactly.
can move to the next, whatever the task is.
Yeah,
And then, yeah, and that sense of, I mean, especially if it's a tradition, like not a traditional, but like a VSP vineyard that's over 100 meters, it's just like, how inaccessible is the center of that row,
yeah,
Like you can't, you either have to crawl on your hands and knees under
yeah.
vines, over
Mm.
things, or you have to like walk, all the way down to the end and then all the way back down to the row, it's
Yeah.
yeah, that
That's
there's a
true.
lot we could do with just simple design changes that wouldn't even affect efficiency or productivity really very much, but would make
And
a
I
huge
also think
difference.
with hybrids and BVs, we even have more possibilities
Yeah.
of trailing systems, or yeah, because there's total different things you could do. And yeah, I think also this is a great opportunity. And this Hungarian vineyard was always in a, they called it hanging culture. They were
Mm.
the shoots were not, so it only had like three wires, one wire where they would bend the cane down, and then
Hmm.
two wires where they were growing in, and then it was just hanging down. And basically it was a system where the communists want to prove that they can produce better than Western Europe, and there was no other handwork than pruning and harvesting. And but my like in the past we hated it because it was the East, and everybody hated the East, and the West won the Cold War basically. But
Right.
more I think about it, it was a great system.
Huh.
The grapes were in shadow, the wines were hanging down, like a Smart in Richard Smart was also having this hanging culture sometimes. So if the wine hangs down, there is there are different hormones coming. So basically, you don't have to cut them, the tops. So basically, you have a different ripening, more structure, and maybe less fruity character. But yeah, I think it was a great system. And I think pergola would be a dream of me, but pergola is also very expensive. So I'm not sure where I go with this. Let's
Yeah,
keep this
yeah, no,
open.
it's that is the tough thing. Yeah, I yeah. Pergola is nice, but I feel like trees are nicer.
Yeah, not sure.
They're more, I mean, they're more adaptable. Like once you lay out a pergola system, then it's like it's that height and it's it's a set fixed thing
Yeah,
versus trees. You're like, oh, I don't like the height, I'm gonna let it get higher, or I don't like the height, I'm gonna cut it down a little bit lower, or it's a little too shady. I'm not
yeah.
liking how much shade it's providing. Great, you prune it back, or like it's
Mm.
not quite enough, or like things are getting hotter. And so you let it grow out. I like that about trees.
Yeah,
Anyway, but that's
it's always
my
the best
bias.
shadow you can have.
Yeah. But you mentioned something, just a thought I wanted to come back to, and you didn't say it directly, but I think you led me right up to this thought, and I thought I wanted to say it for the record, which is this idea of productivity and all these benefits that you're noticing, like you're like, if we grew them, I mean, essentially I'm just paraphrasing you to make it simple, simplifying what you're saying, but like if we grew even vinifera in the right way with not in these like super dense monocultures, we could grow them much more ecologically at the very least than we currently are. And
For
it's
sure.
part of it is our desire to have these, like, to just extract the maximum amount of grape per hectare possible. And
Yeah,
I worry, what you made me think about in that was like how hybrids could become, rather than a solution to ecological problems, but a way to even make things denser. Like we
Yeah.
don't have to worry as much about the health
Yeah.
of the vine
Yeah.
because they are so resilient and have internal resistance, genetic resistance. So we can just like, so it's sort of like a tool to
To make
serve.
cheap wine, or
Yeah,
make
yeah, a
exactly.
tool to serve our extractive ends versus a solution, an ecological solution to. So I think, yeah,
And
I have
this
to.
is example, for example, in Champagne. I think this
That's
is
what they're
for
doing.
sure the reason why they start this,
Yeah,
because they
yeah,
they have very high yields, and it's not a very ecological system they are doing. So
yeah,
yeah, it's just will be easier for them. And still in this case, it's still great if you use less
yeah.
sprayings.
Absolutely, right,
so
right, right.
so it's still
Yeah,
okay. And if our society, so if we need cheap wines, yeah, okay, maybe it's okay. But still, I think it's very important what you said, that we are that's the point. If we don't put the energy what we put in Vitis vinifera vineyards, how could we expect to get a great wine? Just
yeah,
this is I think this is a big problem in Europe most of the time now. And even I was thinking like this. I put the hybrids on vineyards where I said, okay, maybe it's a vineyard I don't know what fits here and so on. But I started to put it on a very top vineyard now, and to learn and see what is the highest result I can get out of it, and not just to see, oh, what is possible with just without spraying. That's I think we have to be very open-minded on this side, and yeah,
yeah.
try
I
on
mean,
many places
y-
the hybrids.
yeah, you make a really good point that like, look, if people are going to be, which it seems like, obviously the majority of people are going to be thinking extractively and at least until the whole system collapses, they're
Mm,
going to do it as long as they can.
yeah.
They might, yeah, like more power to hybrids to fill that so that at least it can be done with less harm.
Mm,
I mean, like it's not what I want for the world or anything, but I guess just being realistic, I'd rather it be hybrids than
exactly.
something that is insane,
Yeah. Yeah.
that takes like an insane amount of pollution to
Yeah.
produce. Um,
Exactly.
but you're right. Like for those of us who are thinking about this, I guess that's what I was talking about. It was just like, yeah, let's. I'm trying to put it out there as like, yeah, I think the important thing to is to rethink and question the motives behind why we're designing vineyards the way we are, not
Yes. Yes.
to come up with grapes that allow us to keep the same
System
bad
was. Yeah.
ideas. Yeah,
Exactly. Exactly.
right.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And then,
um,
like with the trailing system, it's total crazy that I don't know how many percentage of the world using the same trailing system. I mean, the nature is so complex and different by just every hill, and we use the same trailing
mm,
system just because our machines are made for this system. And
right,
and
right.
you see the plantations in France. Why are they have the high density plantations? Because they build machines for high density plantations. Why the Hungarians had far spacing plantations? Because they had tractors for far spacing. So I think maybe we should, like you said, we should design a vineyard for, not because of which machines we are using. Maybe we should design a vineyard for us, or for the space, or
Yeah,
for the yeah for I
for
don't know,
yeah,
for the human, or for the society, for the community.
the community.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. For like thinking like a vine and how. I mean that would be the ideal. Like these a custom, like a bespoke block, you know what I mean, for that variety and the people that work there
Mm.
would be amazing. I know that's it's very pie in the sky right now, but I would
Yeah.
love to play with that idea anyway.
And I also think
Ye-
that most of the times, even if such projects then just will end up like in our situation, maybe this is then just a one vineyard, or this viticulture, vitiforest project is just one vineyard at the moment, and then we have trees in the other vineyards. Okay, but still, it's so important because it's you show what is possible, and then maybe this will other winemakers will start to think and new ideas will come up. And so I think it's very important, so for me also to totally rethink this trailing system. Otherwise, yeah, you're always on this kind of the same story. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you say a trailing system,
Now, I mean,
what?
like you say VPS, or how did you say? So
Oh,
you
yeah, the vertical shoot positioning.
yes,
Yeah.
okay,
So
the vertical shoot position. You're saying. I
yeah.
mean like the so the vertical shoot position, that the shoots are going upwards. That's your point.
Right, right. That's
Yeah.
very common here for high density. It's
Yes.
your row width is like less than,
Yes,
a
yes,
foot.
yes. So the Hungarian system, this was different. But I think, for example, I mean, the trailing system, like, when you look in Canary Islands, you have trailing systems where the wines are lying on the ground in a kind of a hole. Or, okay, in Alto Adige, you have the pergola trailing system. And I think it's very weird that 80% are using the four double wires trailing system. And it's just, yeah, it was chilly. It was made because of the machines we have, yeah, and the tractors we
Right.
use, yeah.
Got it. Got it.
And like,
Well, speaking of,
yeah, sorry.
go ahead.
No, that's good.
You sure?
It's good, yeah.
Right. No, I was just gonna say, speaking of machines, I know you wrote about mechanization, and I know there in Austria, you guys tend to have. Well, I mean, I've heard things. I know that like a famous natural wine producer decided to start doing mechanical harvesting, and that caused a little bit of an uproar, and and yet the justifications for it sounded legitimate,
No,
and understandable at least. But I would, I'm not asking you to comment on anybody else's choices, but just
yeah,
what's, I know you wrote about
yeah.
mechanization, you were
I,
like,
I,
mechanized harvesting and everything.
yeah. So I wrote really about this mechanized harvesting because,
Right.
again, I'm used to tractors. I grew up with tractors, and for me, the tractors are not so bad thing. But the harvest machine, for me personally, was a kind what was a machine which goes a little bit too far. And yeah, uh, I don't know. I always thought that we in wine we are we paint the future of agriculture, maybe also for other farming. And now I see it the opposite. We're going the same way of industrialization than the corn farmers or anybody else, and we have the same problems. And
Right.
I just see when this industrialization goes on, uh, it's not a part. I don't want to be part of this. I don't. There is a stop for me. I say then I don't make wine anymore. If this is the
Yeah.
only way to feed my family, if I have 200 hectares and having a harvest machine and automate everything, then I don't know. Then it's not my way of farming, and I'm totally free. Everybody can do what they want, but for sure, there was the in Austria, this was a problem. First of all, there was a certification body like the emitter, which didn't allow harvest machines, and
Right.
yeah, this winery was using harvest machines. And this is something when then I started thinking why we need a certification anyhow if somebody is doing 7 years harvest with machines and the certification is not seeing this. So I don't know. It's also a reason why uh, I stopped the certification this year because
Ah.
in these groups, even this year in some of these certification groups, there was a big discussions. It's very hard. Economy is very hard. So maybe we should allow for this year a harvest machine. So it comes always up and up this topic, and I feel I don't have the energy anymore to work in this political process in such a group to to fight against this. And so I think there is maybe better ways to communicate and again use the energy to talk about what I think is my way. Uh, yeah, I wouldn't say that it's in Austria standard, but I would say it's big on the rise. So I think that's even maybe already 80% of the vineyards or 70% of the vineyards get harvested by machines here. And it was really fast in the last 10 years how this started. And so 2018, I made this article and I made this logo about Rage Against the Machine with a hand, with a scissor for fighting for the hand harvest. And the great thing is I gave this design free for people, and so many wineries followed and used this design on their T-shirts and so on. So it was also, I think, nice to see if you give, if you without the community, this would be just my harvest T-shirt. But because I talked with people and they said, hey, we should do something about hand harvest, and you want to make T-shirts, here is a design, a logo. Because of this and because of the community, people talked about it, and this was really nice.
That's nice. That's great. Yeah. Another question I wanted to ask you. Well, actually, just a topic. This is something that's come up for me lately, and I only bring it up to you because you mentioned it in the Future of Wine, the word peewees. And there was a article recently in a major publication here in the U.S. where hybrids were referred to as, like, somebody said, they're fungal resistant varieties. And that's what I referred to them as, because that kind of encapsulates their purpose. And I'm like, that phrase in that article made me rethink all of that, as well as the idea of a peewee, because embedded in the idea of a peewee is fungal resistance, right?
Yeah.
And I really have come to dislike that term because of that.
I'm totally with you. You're this. I think you're so clever also to not use this word natural, as we then humans very often see not part of the nature, and I think this is totally stupid. And I think here we are on the same topic. It's a variety.
It's just a variety.
It's a variety. It's a variety, and that's it. And then also with natural wine, maybe we should say this is wine, and this is maybe more industrial made wine. And
yeah,
I don't think we and the wording, it's very important.
And I don't mind hybrid. Like, I think people come up with these words because they are afraid that hybrid has this stigma, which I'm sure it does. Like, I'm not denying that, but I'm like, the solution isn't to, like, diminish what we're doing. Mm-hmm. It's to just get people over their prejudice. Like it's just a hybrid, people. That doesn't mean anything bad, sorry. Yeah. We don't have to come up with a euphemistic name for hybrids. Like, hybrids is perfectly acceptable. It's just just a scientific way to refer to how they happened.
And then also, I always, very often hybrids, we always, in Europe, we see it negative because they are coming from America and, like all this culture thing. But European agriculture, without rootstocks, without American rootstocks, we wouldn't have European agriculture anymore. So basically, we're living on one planet, and it's very stupid to, again, say, oh, these European varieties are better or something. It's like
right. They're peewees versus the American ones are hybrids. It's like. And I mean that part.
But I heard this in America that people see peewees as a better term, and I said, "Come on, it's not. It's the same. It's not. It's not better."
Yeah, it's tough. It's it's tough. There's still a long ways to go, but I mean there are signs of hope. But I think there's. What I'm realizing, I think, is that I find a lot of hope in the fact that, like, it is the blindness to it is pure prejudice. Like, it really is just like a prejudice. And once you, like, so that's exciting to me, because, like, once somebody gets over their prejudice, it's like you just walked into a whole new world. Like all of these things, all these ideas open up, and it's just that one little hurdle of prejudice that you have to get over. And then you're like, oh shit, duh, I was such an idiot. Like, look at all this stuff, so I don't know. So that's my
Yeah,
hopeful
like I had this
perspective
Sauvignon
now.
Gris like 10 years ago, and then I was so impressed. I tasted it blind, and I loved the wine, and then I thought it's Sauvignon Gris, and then I called the producer, and I said, "And he only works with hybrids," and said, "How is it?" And he told me, "Yeah, what do you think? How do you think it is if you don't have to spray?" And like in my brain, it started to think, like, oh my god, yeah, how will it be? It's perfect, like it's like, and 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 just yeah, it's something when you recognize this is something. For sure, there will be always parts in our job which I don't like, that's part of our life, but
Right.
definitely spraying is the thing you like the worst of you hate it basically, and so if we can get over this or reduce it, it's perfect.
Yeah, I like that. What else? I mean, I don't want to keep you forever, but I would love you to mention anything that you are excited about or, that you've been thinking about lately. Um,
Yeah, no, just one thing what was very interesting for me is also maybe just this one thing, oxygen management in the cellar. So I figured out that how higher the loam contact in the loam part of my salts were, more reductive, and my wines got in the cellar, and how more stony and dry my salts were, how more oxidative my wines were and shiny. And this is also something or for example, how yeast react. So how Brettanomyces reacts on a loamy soil versus how Brettanomyces reacts on a stony soil. This is so amazing. Like on stony soils, I nearly love Brettanomyces, and on loamy soils, I nearly hate Brettanomyces. And
huh.
it's so things which most people in the wine world, they are so scared anyhow of such kinds of yeast that they always hate it. But I think it's just nice to also accept some of these yeasts and think about that. And I see the same with the
S-
reduction, like on loamy soils, reduction is way more dangerous to getting too much versus on stony soils. It's a great tool.
So in Lomi, where
Loamy, like I mean, like clay content, high clay content. So uh,
high clay,
clay which brings
but also
groundwater up.
usually more nutrition
Exactly.
in that like
Yes. Yes. Yes.
so which almost is counterintuitive, right? Because you'd think higher nutrition, you're going to have higher yans, which means you're going to have healthier ferments, lower reduction in the ferments, lower sulfide
Uh,
production.
yes.
But what I
But
mean, at
I
least
use
that kind of reduction. But
yeah, but you have to say that clay is a very tricky thing. Clay. When there is water, it gives nutrients. But if there is no water, it
mm,
gets very hard and keeps all the nutrients. And
it's true.
then the
Yeah.
wines might suffer even more than on stony soils,
Huh.
where the roots are kind of used to have not much
Right.
water. Where on loam, in a wet year, there is thousands of nutrients, and in a dry year, there is one point in the summer where all nutrients are gone. And
Huh.
this is, I
Interesting.
think,
Okay.
the interesting part of clay. But generally, I would
Okay.
say the clay is a transmitter of nutrients. Yeah, but this was one of the, yeah, things I
Yeah.
discovered.
If you, I mean, yeah, my experience with clay is I think you're absolutely right, but I've also had the experience of finally amending the clay enough with enough organic matter
Mm.
that it becomes like a super soil. Like it's unreal. Like once you
Yes.
unlock it, it's like you
Yes.
like it's almost too much. Like it's crazy. It
Yeah.
becomes like a
But I have
yeah.
the
You could
feeling you need
grow.
a lot of organic material.
You do. Like
Yes,
I did it in a small space, so it was
yeah,
like
yeah.
and over multiple years. But now it's like it's just going
But
bazonkers.
but I still think traditionally in our area, the vineyards were put there where it made no sense to grow vegetables or corn or wheat. And so it was always up on the hills where there were more stones and the soil was not so so rich. So it seems a little bit still for me that in an agriculture sense, this makes sense because the wine can hold more dryness than, can hold less, can live with less water than vegetables, for example. And our vegetable gardens were always close to the river, close to the water, and
Uh-huh.
in the community. And community farming in our village was, I would say, before the wars or even after the wars, was the only thing we could survive because we were so small farmers that we had to work together, and so we all had the vegetable gardens around the river. They're still there sometimes, and then there were the orchards, so the apple trees and farm trees, and then up on the hills the vineyards. And this was like kind of the way we used, and that's what I see now more and more, that it makes sense. So it seems to make sense. Yeah. and
Okay.
and some vineyards maybe shouldn't be planted there on some spots where they are planted. And this was, I think, the 70s and the 80s, where a lot of vineyards were planted in our area.
Gotcha. Hmm. I do like that. So I mean, the findings from the soil are that it impacts, the type of soil, not, I mean, probably, which has to do with fertility, but the structure of the soil is impacting reduction in the cellar
Yes.
or
I
oxidation,
Yes. Yes.
and
So
therefore the kind of oxygen management that you have to do
yes.
in the life of
That's
it. So
yes.
whether you're
I on drained soil, so where water runs away, I am
uh-huh.
very happily using concrete or even stainless steel or big oak barrels. And on how higher the clay content gets, I need more oxygen, so I go into smaller barrels. And only
uh,
because I'm lazy winemaker, I don't want to wreck my wines, so I ferment in
so
the
you just
barrel,
let
I
the
age in the barrel, and I
right.
bottle. So I don't want to move. Therefore,
Just
it's
let the
very
container
wisely
do the
choosing
work.
choosing
Yeah.
the right wet.
Oh, that's really smart, actually. um but you could, I mean, have you ever racked, right?
If yeah, if it
It's not like
happens
a
sometimes.
dogma.
So like it's also this shape issue. So when I started with the concrete eggs, before that I wasn't taking this over serious, but after that I recognized, uh, if you have like yeah, if you have this round shape. So I really, for me, I really feel if a wine is moving in the barrel. So I mean, like when the top of the barrel is round, like in a barrel, you will always have a
Hmm.
little bit of movement, and so the yeast will hardly get over stinky because the top wine will be coming down to the yeast, and the yeast can take the oxygen from the wine to not get over stinky, because in the end yeast is just organic matter which rottens, and if it doesn't get oxygen it starts to stink like on a compost.
Hmm.
And so if I have a stainless steel tank lying so that it's round on the top, I rarely have reduction problems. But if I have a if you would have a high clay content vineyard or soil in a standing tank where it's flat on the top, you would
Hmm.
have the layers, and you will have on the bottom very stinky lees, and the wine will be quite. So it will be more. In German, we say Böxer, so it will be not reduction anymore. It will be a fault. It will be not interesting. It will be
Mm.
too much.
Right.
So
Right.
this comes all together, and so yeah, I try to consider this more.
And
Yeah, sorry.
no, that's I should probably stop because I could definitely dig into your winemaking, which would be fascinating, perhaps. Um, but we could probably go for another hour just talking about your winemaking. And I don't want to keep you forever and
Yeah,
make this too long. But uh, I know it's nighttime for you, dinner time at least. And I really appreciate this. It's really great to meet and talk with you.
I appreciate it. It was so great to talk with you, and once again, I'm very thankful for the work you do, and I think it's
Oh,
very, very important for everybody around the planet to deep so really dive deep into this topic and think more about it, about our viticulture. and our community.
Yeah. Well, thanks. Is there any contact information or anything like that that you'd like to give?
Oh, yeah. You can look at our website, so weninger.com. And yeah.
Do you ever get, do people try to make the pun Weniger ist mehr?
Yeah, it's true. We have this in the,
This is your winery slogan?
at least in the German-speaking wine world.
You're right.
Yeah.
I love that. But that's just your last name. It's not
Exactly.
It's not
And,
okay.
And it means I just it should mean that it means like the Inger was always the owner of land, and it was the small owner of land. I heard basically that's where the land is coming. So the name is coming. Yeah. No.
Fantastic.
Thanks.
All right. Well, thank you.
It was a pleasure.
Hey, thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate you joining in to these podcasts. If you'd like to support these podcasts, probably the best way to do that is to just join Substack as a paid subscriber at beyondorganicwine.substack.com. It also gives you access to all the paid episodes and other content that I will be releasing on Substack. And I also want to thank Colden Pro for this beautiful closing music.